today we're having a little seminar about childhood obesity. And of course, that is a growing problem here in Jamaica. And we have all the professionals with us to give us some advice as to how to deal with that. Okay, so with me are Miss Samika Alexander. She is the advocacy officer for the Global Advocacy Project at the Heart Foundation of Jamaica. And we also have Miss Sabrina Palomino, and she is a registered dietitian. So I'm so happy that you are here with us. And of course, Dr. Ilana Dixon is a consultant pediatrician. Okay, so we see this problem in schools, in the household, in the communities, childhood obesity. Dr. Dixon, tell us, what exactly is childhood obesity and how exactly is it measured?
So childhood obesity technically is measured through a variant called body mass index, or we call it BMI. And that's a measurement between height and weight, and it takes into account the child's age and the child's sex. And what we do is we determine that based on this formula, and we plot it on the WHO growth chart or growth curve to see where they fall in terms of percentiles. And so what is considered overweight is when you fall between the 85th and the 95th percentile, again, for your sex and your age. And then obesity is considered 95th percentile and above. So when I talk with parents about, their child being obese or overweight, I prefer to use that chart because it gives us more qualitative information than just looking at the height and the weight and kind of coming out, is this good or is this bad sort of a thing.
Okay, and are there any statistics that can tell us the level of this problem here in Jamaica?
Sure. So there have been quite a few studies. One showed that between 2013 and 2018, the rates of childhood obesity actually doubled. And the most largest scale study that I could find, which was a global global school-based student health study, showed that between the ages of 13 and 15, 22.8% of boys are considered overweight, and 28.2% of girls are considered overweight. And then in the same age group, about 10% of boys are considered obese, and about 10% of girls are considered obese. So we have a real issue. We also know statistically that everyone ages 15 and above, about 1 in 2 Jamaicans are considered overweight or obese. So we have an issue here.
I know she's speaking based on that's updated was in 2017. Are you able to speak on anything more recent?
So as part of the Jamaica Moves in School program coming out of the Ministry of Health, around 2019 of the pilot schools that we targeted as part of the Jamaica Moves, we did BMI assessment, and as Dr. Dickinson said, their weight and their height was measured, their age, and they were plotted on the WHO growth charts. Coming out of that study is a similar trend of what is happening worldwide, in that it targeted school-age children, so it looks at children between 6 to 17 years. And what they found from the cohort study is that we have of our females, over 18% are obese. The male are also in the double figures at 11.8%. And for those are the figures for persons who are overweight. And for those who are obese, it's 15.3% for the females and 8.4% for the males. And the age group that had the highest prevalency in terms of obesity rate was what we call the 9 to 11 group, and overweight, the percentage was at 18.3 and obesity was at 15.7.
And this is talking about figures in 2019. Dr. Dixon is talking about figures in 2017. So can you imagine what the rates are now that we have had the COVID-19 pandemic? Children have been home, they have been using their smart devices, they have not been exposed to physical education. So now that there's not much activity going on, consumption of these foods higher in calories, you can imagine how exacerbated those numbers must be now.
I agree.
And Dr. Dixon, as a pediatrician, you would have seen children in your office, and the parents would say, children who have some weight on them, parents are saying, it's just baby fat, I'm not gonna grow it out, things like that. How would you address that? What kind of advice can you give to parents?
We definitely need to reconsider the narrative around our cultural norms, which I think is what plays a lot into this. This idea that a child should clean their plate, or a child should be eating, X, Y, and Z. And if they're not eating those things, and they're labeled as picky, and then certain, tactics are carried out in order to get them to eat, rather than allowing children just to use their natural, instinctual hunger cues that will tell them when they're hungry and when they should stop eating. But, I do try to show them on that growth curve that what they may think of as, they're just healthy, is actually not healthy. And I also try to explain to them or point out the evidence that we know that children who are in that 85th or 95th percentile body mass index have an extremely high rate of being overweight or obese as an adult. And then we also know that those are some of the main risk factors for the majority of non-communicative diseases that are killing Jamaicans, countrywide and globally. So I try to explain to parents that, although they may not see that as, an issue, we know based on these numbers that it does increase their risk factors. And almost everybody knows about diabetes and, pressure, and sugar, and heart disease, and people can relate to that. Sometimes they can't understand what body mass index is, but when I try to show them that there's this direct connection, that usually gets their attention a little bit.
Thank you. And Ms. Palomino, in terms of a healthy weight, a healthy things that you eat, how is that important to a child's life?
So what the child eats is important. Yes, the body needs nutrients, so we do encourage persons to eat. What we have in Jamaica, we have what is called our food-based dietary guidelines, and we encourage all Jamaicans to follow them. It's 8 simple steps. What it does, it outlines our food groups in a plate and divide all our 6 food groups and shows you how it is that you're expected to eat on a daily basis. Almost half of what you eat should come from your fruits and vegetables. The other majority should come from your staples, and a small amount from your food from animals, your fats and oils, and of course your legumes and your nuts. We encourage persons to eat from all 6 food groups, so they get a variety of nutrients. We encourage them to eat a variety of fruits daily, a variety of vegetables daily. Encourage them to include more peas, beans, and nuts. Reduce their intakes of fats and oils. And we encourage them to reduce their intake of salty and processed foods, and also to reduce their intake of sweet and sugary beverages, and also sugary foods. And of course, to make physical activity a part of their daily routine, because physical activity is important as well in helping to stem childhood obesity along with nutrition. So we do encourage them to follow the food-based dietary guidelines that we have for Jamaica.
Okay. So, Ms. Palomina, I hear what you're saying, but we're in Jamaica, and they are always saying, but a picnic, make them eat what they want to eat, make them enjoy it at this point in time. They're growing, or him will grow it out, We always have this, he's a growing child, let him eat, let him have what he may. What are your thoughts?
So, studies have shown that children who are overweight or obese, 70% tend to be overweight or obese adults. And that can cause some amount of economic burden to our country, and also, as Dr. Dickinson said, it can affect their health. If they're overweight, they're more likely to develop non-communicable diseases such as diabetes, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, And of course, I always say to parents, there's also the factor that you cannot see, where they can affect their self-esteem. Some will be bullied at school. So the damage you might not be able to see now, but eventually, damage can occur, whether it's to their health or to their self-esteem. So saying yes, they're overweight, they're chubby, they will grow it out. Where I always encourage them not just to look at the now, but also what is to come.
Right. Dr. Dixon, what based on what you see in your practice on a daily basis, though, all right, what we're looking at it and we're saying, okay, it might affect them in the future. What do you see happening to the overweight or obese children now at this point in time in their lives?
So we are actually seeing more rates of diabetes. We're seeing more rates of high blood pressure in our adolescents, which is, we're seeing a lot of these adult diseases that are kind of bleeding now into pediatrics. Like, when I went into pediatrics, I didn't think I would be treating adult high blood pressure or diabetes, for example. And then there are, the psychosocial issues are serious in terms of self-esteem. We already touched on that a bit. But I'm also seeing things like, I had a 7-year-old who was morbidly obese, and he had a fatty liver, kind of like what an alcoholic would have. And they call that non-alcoholic fatty liver, and that's secondary to obesity, liver disease. We're seeing gallstones. We're seeing precocious puberty, or puberty coming on earlier than it should be. We're also seeing another illness called PCOS, or polycystic ovarian syndrome, which is closely aligned with metabolic syndrome or diabetes, as well as vitamin D deficiencies, iron deficiencies, growth problems, eating disorders, and the list goes on. Almost every system in the body is being affected by the child's obesity or being overweight.
And in this case, we're talking about malnutrition in general. So we know malnutrition comes in the form of overnutrition and undernutrition. And we have to be careful how we talk about that, because it's not only about the calories, but also with relation to the nutrients and the vitamins that are being consumed, because you can be having so much food that has little to no value in terms of
micronutrients.
Nutrients.
With all that said, Dr. Dixon and Ms. Palomino, does Jamaica have a childhood obesity problem? Is this something active? I mean, tell us, what is happening with that?
Yes, Jamaica has a childhood obesity problem, but we shouldn't feel alone. We're just about every country has this problem. Some more than others, but we are not special. And we're special, but we're not special. So, so yes, we have a problem, and there are lots of different areas where I see where we can improve, and then there's policy making, which I'm not really directly involved with, but I don't know if you wanted to go on that, but
we're going to touch on it a little bit later, but you want to, let's just look at some of the economic impacts of this. All right, so we're having some challenges with relation to childhood obesity, and we alluded to the fact that this is going to affect, clearly, it's affecting us now, but it's going to affect us in the future because we're creating adults. So what do you think is the overall economic impact of this? I mean, what are we looking at?
Okay, so I did read a study that was done by the United Nations, and the WHO, they predicted that it would be an economic impact of 77 billion over the years of 2017 and 2032. And that was, they based that number just on the effects in terms of cardiovascular disease and diabetes, just on those two alone. So that, to me, that's pretty significant when you think about economic impact.
And what are your thoughts, Miss Palomino?
So I looked at some studies, and they're mainly coming out of the US, and they saw where the direct medical cost of treating childhood obesity in the US is about 14.3 billion. And what they found out from these studies is that, as we said before, once you're overweight as a child or obese, you tend to carry this on to adulthood.
70%.
70%. So it affects the adult population in terms of production. So persons who are overweight or obese, there's a high rate of absenteeism from work. Studies also shown that there's what you call presenteeism, where persons who are overweight or obese, although they are at work, their productivity level is low. There's a high rate of mortality, more likely for them to be on disability. So their standard of living decrease.
Right.
And also the studies show that even the economic burden will transcend on the country in terms of the amount it will cost the country in terms of treating all of the conditions that are associated with being overweight or obese. As Dr. Dixon said, diabetes, high blood pressure, cardiovascular diseases, liver diseases.
So while we're here thinking, okay, it is a future problem, we have to realize that our children are going to be adults. I mean, we're not just dealing with a childhood problem. And as Dr. Dixon has said, we're seeing adult diseases in children now. So we need to address it now. Clearly, we're building persons for the future. And if we want to have a productive society, we want to ensure that we have persons who will be productive individuals to do such.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So we spoke earlier about playing, children, you know, having this as a must. The pandemic play was a little missing. So what else can we do now? Schools are back in session, sports day this week, you know, everybody all over the place, PE. The ministry had a project to deal with children playing. What more can we do?
So from a nutrition standpoint, what I would encourage parents to do to help to tackle childhood obesity is we take small steps, do increments. So for example, if you pack their lunch bags and you normally would give them 2 juices and a bottle of water, you take incremental steps. So you cut it down to at least 1 bottle. Then as time go on, you try to eliminate it to maybe to every other day till it can reach the point where it's few and in between. Also, cut down the sizes too as well, because although we want you to reduce it, I don't want you to substitute, say, a smaller one for a larger volume. So the size is important too as well. Also, what they can do is look what you pack into the lunch bags. We tend to pack snacks that are high in fat, high in salt and sugar, which we call empty calories. And as Jamaicans would say, they're light, right? So they don't have any fiber or any protein in them to fill and keep the children fuller for longer. So when they eat these high calorie, or what we call empty calorie snacks, they tend to eat 1, 2, or 3 because there's nothing in there that is filling. So we encourage them to give them healthier snack options. So what they could do for snacks, say for example, whole wheat crackers with, say, peanut butter, or a slice of bread with peanut butter, because you're getting fiber, whole wheat preferably, you get some fiber, you get some protein, or you could use cheese with your crackers, or you can also substitute these high calorie snacks for fruits. So they will get fiber plus the micronutrients that we talk about. So they will get that from their fruits. And most parents will complain and say, we encourage healthy eating, but it's more expensive. But I say use what is in season. If it is in season, it tends to be widely available and it is cheaper. And I always encourage them to look at the prices. They are comparable. So for example, a high-fat snack is maybe around $80. What is the cost for an orange or a ripe banana? It's usually around the same cost. Versus when you eat these snacks, all you're getting is just calories. So by eliminating, say, even the juice, once per day, you're looking at cutting back at least 200 calories per day. If you do that for 5 days per week, that's 1,000 calories you're cutting out of the child's diet. So you make small incremental steps. The home is also important. Remember, parents are role models. Children don't have the purchasing powers, right? Parents have it. So they're the ones that go out, do the shopping, do the cooking, the meal preparation. So they too have to buy into this too as well. So they have to eat healthy. Include vegetables a little bit more in the diet, not just once per week. At least aim 2 to 3 times per week. until you can get it to almost every day. And again, the scenario is out there where they say vegetables are expensive, and we go back to seasonality again. If it's in season, it tends to be cheaper, so you use what is available. And eat together. Research showed that when children sit together, when families sit together and have meals, right, they tend to eat what is on the plate. So if you put healthier options on the plate and have a family dinner, they're more likely to eat and enjoy their meals.
Okay. Dr. Dixon, from the doctor's office, what is your advice? What can be done?
So I recommend very similar advice. I believe in incremental change, baby steps, and I try to explain that none of this is going to happen overnight. It's going to take some time, and if it's not working, don't be upset because it's not supposed to work right away. We just have to keep trying. So I have some basic concepts that I like to explain to my parents. And the most important concept, I think, is to separate the power of what the parent can do and what the child can do. So what the parent has the power of is what they're actually going to put on that child's plate. So if the parent decides to put, an apple on that child's plate, an apple goes on that child's plate. But then you have to allow that child the power to choose to eat it or not, right? So when they choose not to eat it, then what's your response? So you can either fight with that child, you can negotiate with that child, or you can go in the kitchen and get something else, right? And I think that all of those things then reduce your power as a parent, right? And it kind of puts you on the same level as the child, because then you're negotiating with the child as if the child is your peer. The child is not your peer. The child is your child. You're the adult. You decide what the child gets. And you literally cannot force a child to eat. I mean, I guess literally you could, but that's not what you don't want any punitive actions being taken here, right? And I always try to, refer parents to their childhood. What happened to you when you didn't finish your plate at dinner? You went to bed hungry. So children rarely starve themselves. Okay. And if we give them the space to make those decisions, then they will choose to eat. Maybe they won't eat exactly what you want them to eat. For example, on the plate, I don't recommend that you put a bunch of things that they're absolutely not going to eat. Put something that they're going to eat and intermix it with other things. And again, half of the plate should be fruits and vegetables. You should have whole grains. Again, get away from the white food diet, white bread, white rice, white toast. All those white foods are high in starch. They don't have lots of simple sugars. So I encourage whole grains, and then lean meats. So the whole power, the parent power, the parent decision and the child's decision, I really encourage parents to separate those out so that we can go into this in a non-combative way. That's firstly. Secondly, in terms of eating together, right? It's not just eating together. We have to all decide that we're going to turn off our phones, we're going to turn off the screen, we're going to turn off the television, and we're committed to doing this for a period of time. Enjoy the food and also pay attention to those hunger cues. I mean, that's what our doctors tell us, like, slow down, don't eat as fast, don't do this. We know that. Why don't we show that to children, right? The other thing is rewards. Do not use food as rewards. That's sending a message that if you do A, B, and C, then you get this, you get the ice cream. So, and the ice cream is the prize, right? And that's called emotional eating, right? How many times have you had a bad day at work and you go home, you're like, oh, I have to, I can't wait to get home and have a glass of wine or have a cheesecake or something because I deserve this, So getting away from the idea that somehow you deserve food and it should be a reward, that's got to go. So we really, the whole parenting and what's happening in the house, the parents sort of have to take this on together. Everybody needs to be on the same page And we all need to be practicing and singing the same song. You need to model this for your children. If you don't, you can't expect your children to make those decisions for themselves. They're not mature. They're relying on you to do that for them. All you can do is show them the way. And if you have a developmentally appropriate child, I promise you that he or she will not starve himself. That's just not natural. Okay. Again, a developmentally appropriate child. There are some exceptions, but we really need to have faith that they're going to eat what they need to eat.
All right, Dr. Dixon, thank you. And this question is for Ms. Alexander. So, are there any current policies that are being implemented or are going to be implemented or that were implemented towards the prevention of childhood obesity in Jamaica?
So I hear what Dr. Dixon is saying, and they all sound very lovely, but in a lot of cases it's very hard for us to give the total power to the parent, because at the end of the day they're going to do what they want to do. And as a country, we have to be able to look out for our people, so that, as we spoke about before, we are valuing the economic impact of all of this that is happening. So far, we have implemented the gradual reduction of sugary drinks in schools, and that we started in 2019 from 6 grams, and we have reduced it to 5 grams, 4 grams, and in 2023, next year is the last year of implementation for it to be decreased. And that should be a total of 2.5 grams per 100 mils. So that is the sugary drinks reduction in schools. And we would have all known about the sugar sweetened beverage tax that we have been pushing for. That has not been implemented as yet, but we are working assiduously towards that happening. Other things that we have in place also is the front of package warning labels. So for us, probably myself and Dr. Dixon and Ms. Palomino probably understands what a nutrition facts label is saying, but for the average Jamaican, for the layman, when we're walking in the supermarket, we hardly take up a package and look at the back to see what exactly is in it. So we're looking for front of package warning labels where it will show you a high in label, and we're talking about the black octagonal warning labels. Put it on the front of the package so that it will say high in sugar, high in sodium, high in trans fat, high in saturated fat. So right then and there, once you pick up the package, you know that this item is high in certain nutrients that you don't necessarily want to be over consuming. And this is not to say that you won't eat it any at all, but you'll have a second guess to say, okay, I had some of this already, let me reduce it a little bit. And then, of course, this is just in general. We have also been working with the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, and the Ministry of Health and Wellness to introduce or implement a school nutrition policy. And with this school nutrition policy, it will give us some guidelines as to how we're going to have a healthy school environment. So, we're just speaking earlier where I was saying I'm a little bit at ends because every week at my son's school there is a cake sale or a cookie sale or an ice cream sale. And while I am trying to do so much at home to minimize the introduction of those things, when he's at school, there is little to nothing that I can do. So, with the implementation of that school nutrition policy, so that we can, have some guidelines to what a healthy school environment will be, we have a little bit more tightening up and more control as to what our children are eating, because after all, the children really are our future,
Yes, and as you spoke about the school, and you're right, in the schools, they have bag juice and they have sock. I encountered a snow cone yesterday, and the water bottle was still full. And what you hear is, all the kids are buying snow cone, and then your child doesn't want to feel left out, so you're cornered as a parent. So how can we help the children? They have all this pressure at school. There's a self-esteem issue with those who are a little overweight. They have all these images of nice, slim, girls that are beautiful. If your child is overweight, how can you help them with their self-esteem? That's one question. And then, I'll point that to Dr. Dixon, sorry. And then for Ms. Palomino, I'll ask you, how do you help with the managing the pressure at school to buy these sweet drinks? So let me start with Ms. Palomino.
So as she said earlier, the policy of creating a healthy school environment is what is really going to be the driving factor. Because as you said, once they're at school, our power, so as to say, is limited. So it's what's available that they'll purchase, and we know how kids are. So even if you pack a lunch, the fact that not everybody's eating a packed lunch, they're going to want what everybody else have in their lunch bag. So we need to change the school environment. What we encourage, and that is also part of the Jamaica Moves program, is for fruits days, for them to have fruit days at school. So at school, on those particular days, fruits will be sold, water day, vegetable days, right? So you encourage them to eat more fruits and more vegetables, and if everybody's doing it, right, peer pressure, so they would tend to follow. So those are some of the things that we can do. But the school environment through policy, has to change in order for us to get a more effective reduction, I would say, in childhood obesity. So the policies that are in the pipeline are things that will help us in terms of that.
Okay. And Dr. Dixon, what about the image? How do we help our obese children to feel in terms of self-confidence when they are obese?
So I really encourage families to not single out an overweight or obese child member of their family and use, derogatory terms, which I will not say right now, because I will hear that right in the office. And I say, no, we don't use that word. And also, and so in that, you really want to value that child. You want to educate that child. You want to make that child feel that they're not any less than any other member of the family. And you do that through, open discussions, honest discussions, open dialogues, eating as a family, working out together, also being active, staying active, and also celebrating successes, small successes, not with food, but with other, ways of celebration. And it's really, what I try to explain to parents is that it shouldn't be just that one child, because I'll have families where everybody's eating one way and that one child is expected to not get A, B, and C. Like the child who had the enlarged liver, that was that family. It was like a family of 5 or 6. And he was the only one with that problem. And it was just like, he can't get that food. And I tried to explain that's not how this is going to work. And, his older brother, who was the primary person at home because mom worked so much, he just ate pure junk food and he was, skinny as a rail. So we really need to take a better look at the family dynamics and what might be working and what might not be working. And in terms of, just addressing it for a child's self-esteem, really working towards acceptance and, okay, these are this is what's going on and this is how we can change things and why is it in our best interest to change things. So, those are some of the things that I'll touch on. And I also encourage going to see a nutritionist to help kind of guide them and, step by step, coming back often for reviews, because a lot of parents don't come back because they're ashamed, that they haven't done A, B, and C. And so I say, please come back. There's no shame here. If you did one thing, great. If you did nothing, then we need to we need to look at this again because something didn't work. Something's not working. So I really just try to be very inclusive and sort of like, okay, we have a problem here. Let's try and figure out how we're going to take care of this.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Dixon. So as we wrap up, I just want to let our viewers know that our study center online, Jamaica Observer's CSEC and CAPE lessons publication, some of our subjects like integrated science and human and social biology, we look at nutrition, and that is something that students really need to check into. It's free, F-R-E-E. All you have to do is to log on to our website, www.jamaicaobserver.com/study center, and get your information on most subjects. Nutrition is just one teeny section of those particular subjects, but we have more subjects, but the nutrition really is something that you need to get. And for the younger children, early childhood, primary level, we have our Learning Corner and Junior Study Center every Thursday in the Jamaica Observer, except during holidays, or I should say in the Daily Observer, except during holidays. And there's a section that we have for health issues, and we will soon be having a section on, diets and recipes and all the niceties that you can do in the kitchen with mom or dad. And it's really something that you need to look into. And I am very grateful, 100 and, as my son would say, %, grateful that the Heart Foundation has agreed to partner with us and our guests, of course, to look at childhood obesity and how we can assist with this problem.
It's a very pressing issue, and as we have discussed today, it's not just about now, it's about the future, but what we'll realize, it's not just a future issue either, it's about now. So, as soon as possible that we can take some action, we really need to do so. And Dr. Dixon and I would have been discussing, we share that passion with relation to breastfeeding. It starts as early as then, it starts as early as breastfeeding, but that's a whole other topic. So we just have to work with what we have now, and as much as we can push for the policies that we want to implement, especially that school nutrition policy, the front of package warning labels. That helps us to, get back in our spaces to understand that we know you can't know it all, but we have the experts to assist us, to guide us into that narrow path that we need to get to ensure that we get back on track and, have a healthier, happier, more sustainable Jamaica.
And of course, if you are having any issues, you want to perhaps tailor your diet to suit your body mass index. Ms. Palomino, you want to give us any final thoughts on that?
Well, what is important in relation to childhood obesity is, as I encourage you, take small steps, and one day we'll get there. So just to make small incremental changes, we do have nutritionists and dietitians available in our health centers, so as well as those who practice privately. So as Dr. Dixon would say, if someone is concerned about their nutrition and would like to know how to improve on that, they can always go into these avenues as well to seek the resource persons.
We have a nutritionist at Heart Foundation as
yes.
well.
Okay. And Dr. Dixon, for the parents who have an obese child or think the child might be becoming obese, give us your final thoughts.
So yes, if you have any concerns about your child's weight, whether it's overweight or underweight, you should definitely bring your child in to see their doctor. And there was one other thing I wanted to mention is the question I often get is, so how much weight does he need to lose? So this is why I like the body mass index, because I don't talk weight. I don't talk, pounds and ounces, and I don't talk diet, because it's not a diet, it's a lifestyle. And I know everybody's heard that 10 million times, but if we think of it as a diet, it's almost like it's medicine, right? And we're going to take it for a period of time, and then we're going to be better. That's not going to be the cure. The cure is to literally change how we're eating. Okay. And when we change how we're eating, that's going to affect our weight. And when we put that weight into that formula, then we're going to see that body mass index come down. So what I show parents is that if their child loses X amount of weight, and I put it in that formula and I show them how much of a difference it makes on the growth curve in terms of their BMI, that's what I'm going for. I'm not going for literal weight loss. I'm going for decrease of the rate of gaining. So it's usually that they're gaining weight too quickly, right? Your child is growing, your child's gaining weight. We can't stop that, okay? We can't stop your child from growing. But what we can do is slow down the weight gain. So if we slow the weight gain down, we're going to see that body mass index come out of obesity and overweight into a healthy area. Quite, it doesn't take much. But that's sort of the message, is that we're not going on a diet. We're not looking for X amount of weight loss. In some cases, you do have to say weight loss because they're old enough that they're not gonna, we're not expecting them to gain any more height. But this is a lifestyle change, and small successes should be celebrated.
All right, as much as I would love to stay and talk for the rest of the day, I know we all have a busy day ahead of us, so I just want to say thank you so much for coming in. Dr. Dixon, consultant pediatrician, Ms. Palomino, registered dietitian, and Ms. Simika Alexander, advocacy officer, Global Health Advocacy Project for the Heart Foundation of Jamaica. Now, if anyone watching this wants to contact any of you guys, is there any way possible that they could? An email address, anything, just to, clarify, or maybe set an appointment or something?
Sure. So I am, I practice out of Ruthven Medical, so you can always call and schedule an appointment, or you can reach out to me via email. My email is just docdee95@gmail.com. And I'm also on Instagram. So there's lots of different ways to reach out to me, and I look forward to hearing from you.
Yeah, so I could share my email, sabrinapalomino58@gmail.com, so they could reach out to me via that avenue.
Okay.
Okay, and I'm located at the Heart Foundation of Jamaica. I can be contacted at advocacy officer at heartfoundationja.org.
And I'm at the Jamaica Observer. when you need those PEP lessons, or your early childhood lessons, or your C-Sec and CAPE lessons for your children, just email me asherk@jamaicaobserver.com. We are all here to help. Thank you so much, ladies.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
All right, and thank you for joining us, viewers. We look forward to hearing from you.